We are back on MorningLine. John Harris with us, Tennessee Firearms Association. Well, let's see. We've got a couple calls that waited through the break. I'm sorry, who's on line 3, Mary Elena? Because Douglas... Okay, we'll take Ricky, and Douglas was on hold. I apologize, Doug. If you call back, we'll take you right off the bat. Let's go to Ricky. Ricky, good morning. Hi, Ricky.
Hi.
Hey, what's on your mind?
I want to ask John a question. I've heard discussion before about gun ownership, and one is saying that if you was convicted before 1985 or 86, whenever they passed that law, that you fall under the old law and you still have a right to own a gun.
Okay, so you want to know if that's true?
Yeah, I want to know if that's true.
Okay, John, do you know about these types of laws and when you can get ownership of a gun again?
Sure. Well, I deal with that a lot in my law practice.
Yeah.
And there's not an easy answer because the Tennessee General Assembly, over the span of decades, has made an absolute mess of this particular area of the law. There are laws, as the caller indicated, that said during certain windows of time, so prior to 85, 86 to 96, post 96, there are different procedures involved with how you would go about as a prior convicted felon, and typically only non-violent felons. So if you have a violent felony or felony drug offense, it doesn't even work for you in that situation. Would go about getting their civil rights restored, and it's called a restoration of rights proceeding, so that they can vote, hold public office, sit on a jury, and as an element of those three coming back, also regain the right to possess and purchase firearms. We also have, as a result of some changes in the law that took place in 2013 and a couple amendments after that date, the ability to take some Class E felonies, again, almost exclusively non-violent felonies, and have those removed from your criminal record entirely, so there's no evidence of them that they even occurred. That process would also, if that's the only problem with your criminal record, restore the ability to possess and purchase firearms. So misdemeanor convictions, with the exception of domestic violence, typically don't cause a problem. And now there are certain classes of felonies where we can, if it's the right circumstances, go back and either restore rights or expunge records. And the result of that is your ability to own a firearm may be restored. But each one of those cases are very fact specific, and you're going to have the assistance of an attorney that knows those areas of the law to maneuver it.
And again, as he mentioned, if you need one, John's right there. No one knows these gun laws better than he does, and he is an attorney who can help you out with that. So let's go now to Douglas. He did call back. Douglas, good morning. Go ahead. What's your question, Doug?
Okay, I have a series of questions. The first one, the most important, I think, is gifting a weapon or receiving a gifted weapon, whether it be a long gun or a short gun. What's the person's responsibility for either gifting a weapon or receiving a weapon as a gift?
Okay.
And do you have to register your weapon? And I think he touched on it some. Does conceal mean hidden from the public if you have the weapon on your persons? And can you have your weapon in your vehicle fully loaded and be legal?
All right, let's get to those. One right down the line, John. You can rip through them. I know you know the answers. First one, gifted weapons, how that works. If someone gives you a birthday gift and it is a .44 Magnum, which I would like for my birthday, by the way.
In Tennessee, and as applied in Tennessee, federal law allows gifts of firearms between individuals and among family members. So, for example, I could give my wife a firearm, assuming it's something she wants, as a gift. I could give my children, particularly my adult children, firearms. I could give third parties firearms. I could trade guns with friends. Tennessee law and federal law, though, does say in this gifting context, when you do it, you have to be reasonably certain that the person that you're gifting the gun to you as the transferor have to be reasonably certain that they're eligible to purchase a gun. So you can't, for example, give a gun to somebody that you know has a domestic violence conviction or that you know has a violent felony conviction. It's just not safe to do that at all. You can even give guns to minors, someone 10, 12 years old. And after all, this is Tennessee. A lot of kids get them the minute they come out of the birth canal.
Now, do they have to register the weapon?
But you have parental consent.
They have to register them afterward or anything?
No, Tennessee does not have a registration requirement.
Okay, what about the concealed hidden? I'm sorry.
So, the only limit on gifting is basically it has to be someone that you know can legally possess.
Okay.
Now, on concealment, if you have the enhanced permit, you can carry in public, open or concealed. If you have the concealed only permit, you can only carry concealed. And as we talked earlier, the legislature really did a big disservice last year in drafting that law because they didn't define what concealed meant. And so in other states, people have been prosecuted for what's called incidental exposures. In Tennessee, that's possible for people to be prosecuted now for incidental exposures because the legislature did a bad job in structuring the law they passed last year. Vehicle transport, the statute on that is 39 Tennessee Code annotated 3917, 1307, subpart E. And it says if you legally possess the weapon and you legally possess what is essentially a private vehicle or a boat, you can transport any weapon you legally possess in that vehicle, loaded or unloaded. So it doesn't even have to be a handgun. It can be a rifle or a shotgun. But you can't get out and walk around with it. It's got to stay in the vehicle. If you park it, it's got to be secured in the vehicle out of sight.
And that really, we've got another call here, but that's really the trick, isn't it? You and I have talked about this before, where you can do so and have it in the vehicle, but let's say you live downtown, you have a parking garage, and you need to walk to your apartment down the way. Well, you're supposed to take the gun with you maybe. If you do that stretch while you're walking, you're technically violating the law. But on the other hand, if you leave it in your car, unless you properly have it secured, as you've always said, and you know as well as I do, we see a rash of car break-ins where guns are being stolen. It puts people in a pickle there. You've got to make darn sure, you've got a plan in place before you decide to do that.
Absolutely. It's unfortunate. I mean, I place all the fault for that confusion on the General Assembly. They should write laws that are simple enough that the average person can understand it without having to watch a call-in show and talk to an attorney about what the laws are.
Couldn't agree with you more, but I'm glad because it gives us a good topic for the call-in show, and then you can get more airtime, and you do such a great job.
Yeah, I don't object in that regard, but if it's something that can put you in prison and take away your rights, the legislature has a fundamental duty to make the law clear and simple enough for people to understand.
I agree with you. Let's go next to Ed. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Nick. Of course, I hadn't called in a while, but that don't mean I hadn't been watching.
Sure.
I agree with you and the guest there, John. You've got to have training. I spent over 20 years in the Marine Corps, and we were well trained in weapons because we had to go to the range every year. And as I moved up in rank, I had to go to the range not only to fire my rifle, but also my pistol. And I fired expert in both of them. But that don't mean if the crap hits the fan and you don't know what you're going to do.
Right.
I'll tell you why. Because you got adrenaline going, and that's dangerous. And these people that they get a weapon basically off the shelf, they go take, a 30-minute training course. Maybe they get lucky to hit the target, maybe they don't. Which just means to me that if they have to use that thing, they may scare the daylights out of the person they're shooting at, but they won't hit them. And that is one of the most dangerous things I've seen about carrying all these weapons. It's almost like the Wild West. And don't get me wrong, I'm sitting right now with 2 rifles in my closet. Don't get me wrong about that. I'm about ready to go get the wife a pistol because of all this crap that's going on. And I got 2 flags hanging up outside, the Old Glory and the Marine Corps flag. And you got some of these doggone, might as well say Muslims, drives up and down the road and they see that, and guess what? They decided they're going to take you on. Well, I got news for those folks. Come on down.
I hear you. People are buying weapons these days more than ever before, I think, to some degree for personal security, correct? I mean, are the numbers up? John?
Oh, yeah, the numbers are substantially up. The last time I looked at it, we had sold more guns in the state of Tennessee in the first half of the year, according to data from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, which tracks new retail sales, than we sold in the entire 2019 calendar year.
And do we think, John, then that pretty much directly correlated to some degree with some of the uncertainty that comes with the coronavirus and the fear of where things might have gone? Just people's minds and imaginations run rampant, but all of a sudden food supply shuts down. You worry about home security or someone coming to steal something. Do you think it has something to do with the coronavirus?
Well, I think public perceptions has a lot to do with it. The TBI has been tracking the volume of sales through retail dealers, licensed gun dealers, since November of 1998. And it's interesting data trends. If you look at the trend lines from November of 98, let's skip that because that's just 2 months. Let's look at 99 through 2007. The Tennesseans, and we've been steady between 6.5 and 6.8 million residents in the state for that entire period. Tennesseans were buying about 250,000 to 300,000, depending on the year, firearms from retail dealers annually. And then something happened in 2008 politically, and the volume of gun sales jumped from that 250 to 300,000 level up to about 500,000 a year in 2008, and it has stayed there. So from 2008 through the data that I saw for 2019, we were doing about 500,000 guns a year through retail dealers. So that doesn't include all the transfers taking place by inheritance or gifts or guns that were already, in the marketplace. And then 2020 hit. And the first 2 months of 2020 didn't seem to be that different than prior trend. But you got the combination of COVID, Antifa, riots, protests, and people realizing a need, not just for a personal protection, but across the spectrum, to provide for their own necessities. And they have bought guns to the point that the inventories are drained for practical purposes, and a substantial number of those are new gun purchases. So people that have never owned them.
And I know you're a clever guy, you saw COVID coming and you invested heavily in a lot of weapons manufacturers, and you right now, John, are sitting pretty. I don't even know why you're on this show right now and not on your yacht somewhere in the Hawaiian Islands.
That could just be a backdrop behind me, Nick. I'm not going to comment.
All right, listen, we'll take a break and we'll come back and wrap things up. One more segment with our guest. More calls if you'd like after this.